Ladies and gentlemen, men and women, boys and girls all across the fruited plains, welcome to tonight's class, The Psychology of the Sale. It is June 19th, 2023, and I'm coming to you live from Raleigh, North Carolina. And we're broadcasting this all across the nation from the Carolinas to California, from Big Bad Minnesota to Mississippi. So we're so thankful to be here with you tonight to be able to share with you some tidbits, some nuggets on how to get better at this game we call selling insurance, and specifically final expense life insurance, mortgage protection insurance, index universal life insurance. Those things are what we specifically are going to focus on with this training. This training class here is a little bit more in depth than normal. This is not just about what to say, but it's why you are saying it. Understand the why, the reasoning, the motivation behind that, but also how to say it by using voice inflections, by using different tones, but also using the processes of, the body language and understanding that concept as you're dealing with your clients and being able to read that. So we try to encapsulate all of those things in with the psychology of the sale. So it is much deeper than a traditional regular training class. I take my time, I slow down, I spend time and just go through different parts of the presentation to understand exactly why you're saying what you're saying. And sometimes when you're out there in the field, as me and Rick talk back and forth, sometimes when he's speaking, he says he's not even sure if it's him talking or if it's me because he's heard me so many times. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but hopefully it's a good thing because this is how I learned it through my 30 years in insurance business is through repetition, through listening to the greats, through picking their brains, through practicing trial and error, falling down, skinning my knees, elbows, and getting back up and trying again. And that is really the best learning process. But I'm going to try to help you shorten that learning curve where you don't skin so many elbows and bloody so many knees, and that you don't walk away frustrated, discouraged, and just want to throw a towel in. So that's my goal here is to help you get better at this game we call selling final expense or life insurance in general. So if you've been with me for the past few weeks, perhaps you have, perhaps you haven't, but that's okay. These things are recorded, so you can go back and listen to my earlier classes. But with the first class I taught weeks ago, and I'm sort of going to do a rehash, and if you got specific questions today that you want me to address, please hit the chat button. You'll find that probably at the bottom of your screen there. You can chat and type in certain questions. If you don't mind, keep your phone, keep your audio muted so they don't have any background noises until maybe I want to open you up and you can definitely speak and speak freely. In the meantime, chat line is good. And you may say, you know what, I went out this week and I experienced X, Y, and Z, and this was a challenge for me. What would you recommend? What are your techniques? What are your skill sets as it relates to this? Please type those in. A lot of times I wait till the end of the presentation to ask you for your questions. By that time, you're exhausted. So if you want to put those in the beginning, please feel free to do so. All righty. I don't mind any question whatsoever. Nothing is taboo. My goal is to help you get better, make life a little bit more easier and comfortable for you. But the first presentation I made, I always like to rehash and revisit because trust me, your mind is going much faster than I can talk. You're thinking about 100 different things right now, from getting kids to bed to maybe getting some dinner late tonight to getting yourself to bed to planning for tomorrow. And so if I don't repeat stuff, sometimes it's going to go in one ear and out the other. But the more you hear it, the more it starts to sink in and the more you start applying it. And that's where you get really, really good at this thing. So the first thing we talked about weeks and weeks ago was understanding your market. And you say, why is that so important? It's extremely important to know your market before you can even go out there and make a presentation, because you want to know who you're dealing with. If you want to increase your chances of closing the sale, understand what makes Miss Betty tick. What makes Mr. Billy do what he does and say what he says every day? From the door to the phone to the in-home presentation. If you're understanding where they're coming from, if you've walked a mile in their shoes, as a good book talks about, and you're able to relate to them on that level, you're not going to get frustrated. You're not going to lose your cool. You're not going to get impatient. You're going to take your time because you're realizing that's the market you're dealing with. So for those of you that have been with me for a while, I want you to type in the chat line something that's unique about this market of final expense in particular, about this clientele. What's something sort of special, maybe a little different, something unique about Miss Betty and Mr. Billy that you've learned through this class or another class? You've picked up. What is it that you have noticed about your market that's going to help you increase your sales with this market? Type it in. What have you learned? This is important. You're right about that, Rick. They all have stories and they love to share them. That's important in this game because sometimes you're Miss Betty's entertainment for the week. Did you realize that? Did you realize that sometimes they haven't seen their children in weeks, months, maybe years? Sometimes they're very lonely. This is the senior market. It's an underserved market. It's a misunderstood market. So they love to tell you their stories. I love to listen to their stories. That's how we're able to connect and relate. So they're proud of their family in most cases, love that. And we talk about this in the connectivity stage, in the warm-up stage. Family's big. They come from a time period where they had, some of them, 6, 8, 10 brothers and sisters. I've ran into sometimes 12 and 14 and 16, these people are telling me. They come from a farming background, a blue-collar background. They have lots of children in their homes. So family is important. I talked to them about their reunions. Do you still get together as a family sometime? They love to talk about that. Oh, yes. Every August at XYZ place, we have a family reunion. That tells you about values. It tells you about morals and ethics and character. It tells you a lot of things on how they were raised and what's in their mindset. That's critical for you if you're going to sell final expense. Now, when I was selling long-term care insurance, and when I was doing Medicare insurance to a different marketing clientele, I had to understand my market from a different angle, a different avenue. Please don't underestimate the power of understanding your market. And I agree with you, Joe. I believe the final expense market is more personal and it needs that connectivity. You're absolutely right. If you go into Miss Betty's home or Mr. Billy's home and you're the wham bam, thank you, ma'am, or man kind of person, and you were in and out fast in a rush like a whirlwind, that doesn't sit well with them. I can promise you that. I met with this 80-some-year-old lady the other day, and I told her I was going to get back with her in 2 days. Well, the end of the 2 days was coming, and I had her on my calendar, and so it was near 5 o'clock. She reached out to me because my word is my bond with her. That's how she was raised. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't lawyers. It wasn't attorneys. It wasn't anything like that. It was a handshake. It was looking someone in the eyes and saying, I'm going to do this, and they expect you to do it. You're right, Joe. It's more personal, and they need that connectivity. And I want to tell you something. If they trust you, they'll move heaven and hell to do anything for you. If they like you, respect you, and trust you, I'm going to promise you, they'll give you referrals. They'll refer their neighbors and friends and family. You do senior centers. From those presentations, that lady called me today, and I tell you the story all the time. Gosh, it's been 10 years since I was in her home, 10 years. But she gets a birthday card every year. She gets one. She also gets a holiday card every year. She gets one. And Gary makes a phone call typically about every year. So when she needs insurance, she's going to call me. That's connectivity. That's more than just closing a final expense sale, get someone's name on the line, run out the door, have commission breath, go get paid the next day, and never see or talk to that person again. That's why people have chargebacks in the final expense world. It was too fast, too rushed, and no connection. Good job, Joe. Thanks for sharing that. They really love the history of their family and also where you come from. Absolutely right. Now, I have a farming background, so I'm going to be able to put that out there. Some of you don't. Maybe many of you don't have that. But maybe your parents were. Perhaps your grandparents were. Perhaps they were blue collar. Or maybe somebody in your family right now is. Find that connection. Find that angle. Find wherever you can get in and relate on that level. I'm going to tell you something. That is sales one-on-one that many people miss and don't spend enough time in understanding your market. See, I talk to you when we laugh about this, but I understand Miss Betty is watching The Price is Right in the morning, and Judge Judy, and Jerry Springer, and the Western Channel. I've been in enough homes, I've seen it. And I can talk about every one of those and many others, but I know what makes Mr. Billy tick. He's sitting there and he's been sitting there all day long watching every Gunsmoke episode you can think of. I can relate to him. I'll watch those many times over. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you don't even know what that is. I would suggest, especially if you're a younger generation, that you Google the Western classics and maybe just at least familiarize yourself with them, because you're going to run into it. And it's funny when I can say, I saw that episode before. He says, yeah, I've seen it 10 times because they watch it over and over and over. You can relate to them when Miss Betty likes to watch the soap operas. I didn't necessarily watch them that much, but my wife loved it, especially Days of Our Lives. I got familiar with it because she would tell me about certain people and things and places and what's going on. My mom loved to watch The Young and the Restless. I'd come home from working the tobacco fields. She would have it on. And I didn't know what really was going on. I didn't really care as a kid, but I knew enough about The Young and the Restless, I could make a conversation with it. So get familiar with your market. Know what they like, what they don't like. Bonanza, Magnum PI. Oh my gosh. As the World Turns, we could go on. Yes. Gosh, I'm trying to think of another one too. There's so many that we could just relate to. They love Matlock, was the other one I was thinking of. Andy Griffith. Yeah. So they love these kind of things. And the more you get familiar with that, the more you understand that market for sure. Those things are great. Those things are really good. Gunsmoke, Little House on the Prairie, perfect. Understand your market. Understand what makes them tick. Understand what turns them off. Understand what's their motivation. Know your market. Spend some time with that. Number two, we talked about, yeah, Murder, She Wrote too. Several of them love that one. That's for sure they do. Those mystery type things, detective type things. Perry Mason, one of my favorite. All righty, so next category we talked about, just to kind of refresh your memory, was what you call warm up. What you call getting to know your prospect through a warm up or rapport building stage. I take it a step further. This is the psychology of the sale. This is going a little bit deeper. This is called connectivity stage. Connectivity stage. Somebody this past week went out and bought that book I recommended. I know it was Michael, which I was proud to see. And it's a tremendous book. Does anybody remember the name of the book I recommended to learn how to connect with other people better? Which it could be your spouse, it could be children, because it works for them as well, or it could be your prospects. What was the name of the book that I recommended? Anyone, put it out there. Or you can come off mute and tell me, or you can put it on the chat line. What was the name of the book? Good point, Edwin. Yes, I use the same strategies in this book with raising teenagers. I want to that's if that's not an important person or persons in your life to learn how to communicate with when that teenager shuts you down and they build up a wall, how are you going to crack it? How are you going to get through? What do? It happens all the time. And so unless we figure out a way to do it, good guess, Rick. That's one of my favorite books too. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's a different one. That's Stephen Covey, but it is one of my favorite books of all time. It's in my top 5 of just life lessons and strategies and relating to people. So that is one of my favorite ones. Well, the one that I recommended last week was Everyone Communicates, Very Few Connect. Everyone communicates, very few connect. So true. Why? Communication is all about talking, talking, talking. Can't wait for you to get done with your sentence so I can add on to what you're doing or tell you how I think about that. Or I might cut you off mid-sentence to get my point across. That's communication, unfortunately. Connection is doing more listening than talking. And it's really trying to make a connection with you on the level that you are. Covey now puts it another way, which I think is real interesting in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He says one of his habits, it is John Maxwell. Yeah, thank you, Michael. And which is a tremendous leadership guru. Covey goes with his books in the 7 Habits. One of them is seek first to understand, then to be understood. So he's sitting on the same playing field as Maxwell is here. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Our problem is in life, and I got it too, and we all have a problem with it, which is we're so busy trying to get our thoughts and points across that we fail to listen to what that person is really saying. And you're right, Karen, 2 years for a reason, no question about it. You just get the Audible and you finish The Secrets of Closing the Sale. Let me tell you something, Joe. That's powerhouse stuff right there. When I was struggling as a young man and could barely feed my family, I could barely close a door, much less close a sale. Good buddy of mine at church saw I was struggling with kids, and he gave me a signed copy of that, which I still have today, almost 40 years later. Wow. And the pages are torn and they're yellowed from sitting in my car seat as a reference guide, just memorizing Zig Ziglar's closing techniques. It's one of my most favorite. One of my most favorite. Yes, Zig is awesome. So Secrets of Closing the Sale is one of my favorite, but the one you want to work on here with, which is step number 1, once you get to the home, is you call it rapport, you call it warm up, I call it connection. That's deeper. Connection is listening. Communication is about doing more talking. So as a result of that, type in the chat line, what type of hat should you wear as you are doing that connectivity stage? What professional hat should you have on? Who do you become in this connectivity stage? You got it, Joe. You're a detective. And if you notice detectives on good thriller type, crime type movies, they know how to ask the questions and sit back and listen as you put yourself into a corner. They do. They do. They do a lot of that. And you're the detective now, not an interrogator, but you're a detective. And you're uncovering what I call landmines, potential landmines, all throughout that process in the connectivity stage. Yeah, I love that, Karen. You're right. So with this in mind, I've given an acronym of something that you might use to kind of keep you on track as you're going through the connectivity stage. Who remembers what the acronym is? Anybody remember what the acronym is in the connectivity stage to kind of keep you on track, to keep the ball up in the air as you're questioning Mr. Bill or Miss Betty, or it could be Mr. and Mrs. John and Mary Jones if you're selling a high-end product. It works the same form, right? FORM. Family, occupation, recreation, and money. A general guideline for you. That's something you want to focus in, and notice that family is number 1. And you're right earlier, the market. This is a family-oriented market. Spend time there. Ask questions there. Know the kids, know the grandkids, know their hot buds, know their loves of their life. Because typically, this is where Miss Betty and Mr. Billy sell themselves. They're telling you what they really want this for is right here. It'll tell you in your connectivity stage. And it's okay to jostle back and forth a little bit. You know, if I'm going to do more listening than talking, but every now and then I'm going to say, gosh, Miss Betty, you're not going to believe this. You come from a family of 9 kids. Me and my wife are blessed with 8, 4 boys, 4 girls. There was something in our water and we finally got it fixed. I'm going to throw in little things to kind of keep the ball in the air. So I'm not just an interrogator asking tons of questions. but I'm also a detective. And I want to see the responses. Now I've made a connection on this, Betty. You came from that many kids. There's that many kids in my family. Where'd you fall in line, Miss Betty? I was number 6. Wow, incredible. So you got an instant connection with those things. Now you're getting on their level. Recreation. I want to know about recreation because that tells them about disposable income. So Miss Betty, now that you're retired, what do you do for fun? What do you do? I go down every Wednesday night to the church down here and I play bingo, and gosh, I typically win some money and blah, blah, blah. And she plays bingo on Wednesday night. It tells you a senior group of people. Before I leave there, I want to find out who the director is, the program director. I want to get their name and number. I want to come in and do a presentation. I'll call the bingo and I'll hand out prizes. That's just a sideline note right there. But I want to know her recreation. Like, what else do you do, Miss Betty? Gosh, every free moment I get, I got my grandkids over. That's the love of her life. She's going to tell you that. Or no, of course, now that I'm finally retired after 35 years teaching school, I belong to this wonderful, senior group, and we take cruises at least once a year. Where's your next one planned, Miss Betty? We're going to take an Alaskan cruise. Where have you been so far? Oh, we've been down to the Caribbean, and we've been down to other islands, and it's been fabulous. That tells me Miss Betty has discretionary income if she's taking cruises with friends. Right? I mean, that tells me something. Or if she goes, well, I don't really do much of anything anymore, but sit around here and watch TV and just go out to eat occasionally. That's about it. That tells me a whole nother ballgame. Maybe her health isn't good, because if you're not active physically, typically your health is not going to be good. It also tells me maybe she doesn't have discretionary income. So I'm looking at balancing this. What plan am I going to present? What's her health like? I gotta find something reasonable. So lots of things are gonna be, does she already have a policy she's had in place for 10 years and could use the cash value? Listening to what she's saying on family, occupation, recreation, and I'm listening for money. I'm listening not so I can get her money. I'm listening to see what she can afford. What does she need it for? What's she trying to cover? So I'm listening to all these things in my connectivity stage. So critical, so powerful. You can go back and listen to a lot of my trainings on that. I spent a lot of time with that, and it will help you immensely once you learn to connect. Now, I've been teaching and training agents almost my whole life, and many of them shortcut this part of the presentation. And some people even tell you, I don't spend more than 2 or 3 minutes of that and I'm done. Okay. If that's what floats your boat, if that's winning for you, go right ahead. But I can guarantee if I look at their persistency rate, I would say is probably lower because they're not making that connection and keeping the business on the books. Remember when I did my training in the beginning, those of you that were here, and write this down if you weren't here then, right? Because this is really, really important. People will long forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. I'm trying to put together a feeling of this heart-to-heart connection with Miss Betty or Mr. Billy, so they never forget those feelings that they got from me. There's what I'm trying to do. That keeps on the books, that gives me referrals, that gives repeat business. That's the longevity of what we're doing. That's why people say final expense, oh, you have a lot of chargebacks and people don't keep it. I understand why, because you aren't doing it right. You're in there just showing a lead card and what do you need? Let me quote you some rates and you're out the door finding the next one. That's ridiculous. No wonder it's not staying on the books. I wouldn't either. I don't trust you, don't like you, don't respect you. I don't even know who you are. This helps you keep on the books. This is the training I'm teaching, not how to close a final expense sale. As I said before, being facetious, I could type up a letter, roll it up, put it in my dog's mouth, go ring the doorbell. They take the note, says sign here for final expense application. It's $40 a month, his whole life, and blah, blah, blah. Put the note back in the dog's mouth and send it back to me. 20% of those people are probably going to do it because they're laydowns and rollovers. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the other 80% and keeping on the books. That's how you do it through a great, great connectivity stage. All right, moving from that. I just spent days on that. The next stage of this was a very important stage. Who remembers what comes right after connectivity? Somebody type in the chat section. You've done an amazing connectivity stage. You and Miss Betty are just rolling, laughing, having fun. She's told you all her needs and wants and wishes, desires, and you're sitting right there. Wow, this is amazing. This woman's amazing. Mr. Billy's amazing. We got it. You go right in now to just quoting some rates, getting their health information, closing the deal. What do? What's next right after this? Anybody? What do you do? Joe, you've been cheating. You've been on too many of these. Yes, it's your personal credibility statement. Remember, people will forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. That's sales. That is what we're doing. Sales is nothing more than a transference of feelings. If I can get you to feel about my product and what I'm offering the way I feel about it, you'll buy it every time. You've got to feel that though inside of you. You've got to intrinsically take it from your head to your heart and say to yourself, wow, I wasn't planning on buying anything today, but the way this guy or gal makes me feel, I want it. I got to have it. That's that transference of feelings you're talking about. And I'm going to tell you what, this is really, really, really incredible once you learn how to do a credibility statement. Now, you could easily skip this, and most people do. Most people do. They don't do a personal credibility statement. Why does Gary do it? After all the years of selling, why do I do this? Because I've seen the people who close at extremely high level do a personal credibility statement, and they keep it on the books a lot longer. What is that, by the way? If you're brand new, what am I talking about? But when you walk in the door, you don't have a plaque on the wall like your doctor, attorney, banker, accountant does, screaming at you with all those credentials that build instant credibility. You don't. All you have is a previous track record of a prior salesperson who left a bad taste in their mouth that just left last week, last month, and is still in the forefront of their mind. And they're thinking, they're all the same. They're all a dime a dozen. I can't wait to get this person out of my house. I can't wait for them to leave. I can't wait for them to get down to the end so I can say, think about it. Really? That's their history. That's what's in their memory bank. We're going to change that. You're going to change that by saying something of the nature like this. Miss Betty, I could talk about your family and your wonderful kids and grandkids all day long, but I know that you got places to go and people to see and things to do. That's my transition out of that into my personal credibility statement. Miss Betty, let me explain to you why I do what I do for a living. First and foremost, I've dedicated my life to helping people get things in place before it's too late. I've been doing this now for almost 30 years. I'm licensed by the state. All these programs are approved by the state. Listen to this, folks. I've used the state twice already as I'm piggybacking on their credibility as well. I'm licensed by the state, true statement, and these programs are all approved by the state, true statement. They all have to go to the Department of Insurance and get approved by the state before you can represent them in the state. So I'm using my credibility here in the beginning and piggybacking on the state of North Carolina. But also said, I've been doing this, Miss Betty, now for almost 30 years. I had more hair when I started, Miss Betty. She always laughs about that. I realize you haven't been doing this 30 years. So in the beginning, I didn't say that, Miss Betty, I've been doing this a long time. And boy, I had a lot more hair when I first started. See that I can do that way as well. I don't have to give a time period if I don't want to. Okay. So that's how you're building some credibility here in the beginning. Then I do some rhetorical questions and I'm going to start assuming the sale through this whole process. I start assuming from the beginning. Now, Miss Betty, you know the reason why I do what I do for a living here? You know the reason why this is important to me? Now, then I go into the reasons why. You know the best part about my job, Miss Betty? The best part is when your daughter, Mary, now watch this. I got the name Mary in the connectivity stage. When I asked Miss Betty, so you got a daughter and a son. They live where now? Oh, they do. And your daughter's name is, her name is Mary. Okay, great. And your son? He's Robert. Okay, very good. Wow, some great names, Miss Betty. I know you love them dearly, and they'll tell you some things right there. They can know that they never come see me or call me. They'll tell you that right then. Or they'll go, Oh yeah, I never see my son that much. My daughter, she's sort of the light of my life. Haha. Wow. And you have how many grandkids? That's six. That's wonderful. Is he one of those like the apple of your eye? Oh yeah. I got a grandson who calls me or he FaceTimes me every night before bed. Ladies and gentlemen, are you hearing this? Are you hearing this? All I asked Miss Betty is that I said, do you keep, is any one of them the apple of your eye? And she goes, yeah, my son, grandson, he's 10. He FaceTimes me every night, once a week, whatever. I love that little rascal. He plays basketball. He gets straight A's in school. She's going to brag to death on him. Now I get down to the presentation somewhere, and Miss Betty goes, I got 25,000 of life insurance, and I got whole life, and I'm satisfied with it, and it's all I need right now, and I love it dearly, and I'm not changing, and I'm not switching or anything like that. You feel like you run into a dead end. I haven't, but you have. Because Miss Betty's going to shoo you out the door, not me. Because I remember the 10-year-old grandson that she was bragging about in the beginning, and she couldn't quit talking about him. Miss Betty, have you ever thought about leaving something behind for that wonderful grandson that you love dearly, that makes straight A's on the basketball team and the FaceTimes you ever thought about leaving him something special because he's kind of the apple of your eye, maybe down the road? Oh yeah, I've already set up a little savings account for him right now, and I'm putting some money aside every month in there for him down the road. I'm painting this picture for you because now this is just open a brand new door for me, a sale that I didn't have. And I want to teach Miss Betty learn how to do pennies on the dollar. Instead of you trying to put aside, Miss Betty, $100 a month, why not put aside about $30 a month and get about a $5,000 policy for him and can be income tax free, it's probate free, and it avoids taxation as well as creditors. And so it goes directly to him at your death instead of getting tied up in probate somewhere. That's going to open Miss Betty's eyes. I've opened up another door because I listened during the connectivity stage because she's happy, but now she needs something for him. And then once we talk about him, I might talk about the other grandkids. So it opens doors. This is the reason why I'm going to ask them the names during the connectivity stage. Miss Betty, do you know the best part about my job? The best part about my job is when your daughter, Mary, is going to call me down the road. Now, I want you to picture this for a second. You're hearing me say this to you specifically in your situation, the people on this call tonight, and I know your child. Because part of my job is when your daughter Mary is going to call me down the road, you visualizing this, I'm also assuming this L. And she's going to say, Gary, understand my mom had a policy with you. We need to use it. Your voice lowers, your cadence is softer, your tone is softer, because you're talking about something very special here, and it's touching the heart of Miss Betty as she's visualizing being passed away and her daughter having to take care of the funeral and the burial, because that's what's going to happen. Now, I'm not glad, Miss Betty, that your daughter Mary's got to make that call. I'm just glad that you went ahead today and put something in place for her, assuming the sale very softly, early on in the presentation, setting myself up as the doctor of insurance, the one that can help her solve her problem. You know the worst part about my job, Miss Betty? It's called rhetorical questions, ladies and gentlemen. It gets people's attention. People are falling asleep on you in the homes because they're bored out of their skull. They're talking about something that's really boring and also uncomfortable for them. So you're going to have to spice it up a little bit. You're going to have to make it interesting. You have to become a good storyteller, a good person who asks questions. You have to become a detective, a doctor who's feeling out somebody's situation. This is psychology of the sale. This isn't just sales 101 where you're just teaching basic principles. This is getting a little bit deeper in there to understand what Miss Betty's thinking about and working on the psyche a little bit. And we all have it, and we all go through it. You go through it, I go through it, the sales process every time. And once you find a great salesperson, you try to take yourself away from them, and you can. It's like a magnet. It pulls you closer and closer and in because you're great at what they do. But you get a salesperson who's like, gosh, it's like slime on you. You just can't wait to get away from them. Think of that salesperson. Now, Miss Betty, worst part about my job is when your daughter Mary has to go around bed borrowing and stealing and trying to collect money to put you away properly because you didn't have enough life insurance or none. That's pretty sad, isn't it? Yeah, we don't want anybody to have to do that, do we? No. That must be not to bore you with my story, but I grew up on a farm. So this is what I'm going to tell. Stories sell, benefits tell. So become a good storyteller. Figure out your own story. Figure out what's motivated you in life. Think about some times in your life that's been hard with your family. Someone who passed away early, too soon, no money, no nothing, and what the family had to go through. Think about it. Put yourself in here. And Miss Betty, not to bore you with my story, but just kind of let you know the reason why I do what I do for a living. I grew up on a farm in South Carolina. We raised everything. You remember those days? You know why I say that? Because this group of folks came from a time when a lot of them grew their own food. Now, if Miss Betty didn't do that and she was a school teacher, I might go a different story. But most time they got some sort of farming, vegetable growing background. Do you remember those days, Miss Betty? Connectivity, connectivity, connectivity. You can't get enough of it. Oh yeah, I do remember those days. There's nothing like a fresh tomato sandwich. There's nothing that beats good corn and beans and peas straight out of the garden. Don't go on and on about that. I know that. I know it's true. But I did the same thing. Yeah, those were the good old days, weren't they, Miss? Oh yeah, they were. But you know what, Miss Betty, my dad, he made us go to church every Sunday, whether we wanted to or not. You remember those? Oh yeah, oh, yeah, right. They said no matter how late you stay out on Saturday night, you got to be there at church. Yeah, yeah. Now, maybe that's not you. Maybe that's not who you are. Maybe that's not your market. I know my market in the Southeast. They're Bible Belt. They are. They grew up with it. They grew up watching Billy Graham. They grew up with the stuff. I did. They did. So, but that may not be you. You got to figure out who you are in your market and tailor your story that's going to meet the needs of your client where they can relate to it. Oh yeah, my dad made me go to church every Sunday, but I want to go to it, not Miss Betty. Remember those? Oh yeah, I do remember those days. Well, unfortunately, Miss Betty, my dad said, not unfortunately, but fortunately, he said, if you don't work, son, you don't eat. You remember that too, right? Yeah. Biblical principle that they learned, we learned. Unfortunately, he turned 49, Miss Betty. He had an accident on the farm and it took his life. Sad story. I was a teenage boy. I immediately became almost like the father of the home because my sisters were younger. And he left my mom in a pretty bad situation. He didn't mean to. He was self-employed, didn't have anything really much at all, farming. And but my mom struggled to raise his kids. She really struggled. When I got big, I says, Mom, I'm going to go do this kind of work for a living. Now, she thought I meant farming, Miss Betty. I says, no, ma'am, I'm not going to be farming. I want to go educate the public about getting things in place before it's too late. And Miss Betty, this is no longer a job for me. It's a mission. It's a crusade. See those impact words that I'm using, that you'll figure out what your impact words are, that may not be it, but it is for me. Because this is no longer a job for me, ladies and gentlemen. It is a mission. It is a crusade, helping people get things in place before it's too late. And Miss Betty, don't ask me anything about teaching school, which is what you did for the past 30 years. But if you want to know something about insurance, I'm your guy. I'm an expert in the business. Now I'm putting my credibility on the wall, like when she walks into the doctor's office and she sees all the degrees from the doctor and the attorney and the banker and the accountant and everybody else. She can't see my degrees. I don't have any anyway. But she sees now, okay, this guy is not some Joe Blow off the street. Excuse for using your name, Joe. He's not just some guy, Yahoo off the street, just peddling insurance down the street that has no interest, no desire, and no care for me and my family. Difference, big difference when they hear this. People forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. Think about it. How are you making people feel? Do they feel like, man, I don't know, this doesn't sound right, or I don't know, I don't know if I want to do this right now. I need to think about this, or well, I'll get back with you, or you're just kind of like a dime a dozen, everybody else is doing this too. If you get some of that, that can change, because I got that too in the beginning. I did. Not come home and tell my wife, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't. I'm doing the presentation like they told me. I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. Something's missing. Night after night after night after night. Come home, the kids are up their arms around my legs and sit on my feet. Daddy, 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 did you get the sale? Did you get the sale? You know, dude, that is hard. Well, they told me they're gonna get it next week. They're gonna get it next week. They're gonna get it next week. In the beginning, I believed people. I thought they would. I spent days and days and days and weeks trying to chase them on the phone and couldn't find them. They just kind of, I don't know, fell into the earth. So I learned a few things. Something had to change. It's more than just a rote presentation. It's more than just spitting words out of your mouth. It's deeper, and it's a connection. Now, this is how you close at a high level. If you want to close at 33%, it's fine. You can still make a living. You just got to see a lot of people. I want to close at 80 and 90%. That range, that every time I sit down with someone, I got an 80 to 90% chance of closing that deal. That's what I'm after. That's what I'm trying to help you get to. So don't ask me anything, Miss Betty, about being a school teacher, which is what you've done for the past 30 years. So in essence, what I'm saying here subliminally, I'm not going to tell you how to be an expert in your business, but don't try to tell me how to be an expert in my business. I started that in the long-term care business sales years ago, when the people in that market were hiring people. They had nicer houses, much nicer than I had, a lot more money in the bank account than I had, drove much nicer cars than I did, wore much nicer wardrobe than I did. I was intimidated by them. And I made the decision after reading Zig stuff and Dale Carnegie stuff and John Maxwell stuff and a lot of other people's stuff, Brian Tracy. I said, you know what? I want to quit being intimidated. Like these people put their pants on just like I do. I mean, you know what? I know I'm 30 years old and they're 60, but you know what? They need what I got. I got to step up and look at this differently. I got to be on a mission, a crusade. I got to have courage when I go in there. So I started going like, you know what? Don't ask me anything about being an engineer or what you did for the past 30 years, John. But if you know something about insurance, I'm your guy. I'm the expert in the business. You no longer have to send in any more of these cards in mail, calling in any more TV commercials, have another blue suede shoes person knock on your door and come in your house. I'm the last insurance person that you'll ever need to see again as far as life insurance is concerned. You know why? Because when it comes claim time, I'm going to be here for your daughter, Mary. I'm going to come here personally. I'm going to help her fill out the claim forms, get the death certificate in. I'm going to kind of bring emotional support to the family because that's a pretty tough crisis at a tough time in their life. And while everybody else is bringing her bills, I'll be bringing her a check. Would that be nice, Miss Betty? How does that sound to you? That's a personal credibility statement that I use. Now, you pick out what you want to use. Put something together that's going to make an impact on someone's life, that they feel it when you're doing it. If you can figure that out, your sale is closed pretty much right then. It is. The rest is a formality. So that's credibility. Work on that. Take some time with that. Don't let that pass by lightly. Write it out and then put it to memory. Once you do, I'm going to tell you, you're going to see your demeanor improve, your courage increase. You're going to look people in the eyes when you say it, and they're going to get a feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with a pro here. I'm dealing with an expert in the business. I'm dealing with a doctor of insurance. I am. They're not going to tell you that, but you're going to see it. Their eyebrows will change from down to up. Their eyes, their pupils will change from small to big. Their glasses that have down their nose, like a lot of the engineers right here in Raleigh, they'll push them up like that. That shows they're interested. Their legs will go from folded to unfolded. Arms the same. They'll lean from leaning back to leaning forward. Their mouth will change. Their lips will change. Everything will start changing, and you'll notice it as you start watching closely in your presentation. Not granted, if you're new, you're just trying to get the darn presentation out. I get it. And so was I. So was I. You're just trying to say it. Okay, do that. You got to, no amount of training anywhere is going to get rid of the fact that you need to just go through your presentation several times. Knock the first 20 presentations out, let the chips fall where they may. That's part of this process. But after that, we're talking about fine-tuning a few things. Okay, in just a minute, we're going to address some questions. Thank you, Edwin, about that. Oh man, you call me Dr. Gary. Man, I tell you, I feel important now. And I'll address your question in a moment, Brave family. And Andrea, I want to ask, address your question, and we'll address those. Just give me 1 second here. I'm going to finish this, then we'll jump on those. All right, so I mentioned connectivity. We've mentioned credibility. Now, what comes right after your credibility? What are we trying to do? You set yourself up as the expert now, as a doctor, as the pro, as the guru, as a person they trust. What do you do now at that point? What's your next stage, your next step? Anybody? Where do we go from here? You go to, that's correct. A little bit, there's a little bit to do right before that, Rick, but you're right. You want to find out why they sent the card in. So Miss Betty, based on that, I get these cards in by the dozen every week. Typically, people send them in for 1 of 3 reasons. You go through the 3 reasons and find out which reason they sent it in. Needs development, correct, Joe. So that's where you're going next with the card. 3 reasons why people send it in. Which one best describes your situation, Miss Betty? But don't get caught in the trap of taking the superficial answer. Everybody gives you a superficial answer. They do. You're like a little fly, and so they're trying to get you to bug off. This is where you really become the doctor. You peel the onion and you get to the core of it. So someone says, well, I sent this in because I got some insurance and I just thought I need to add a little bit more on. Great. Now go get your medicine and let me figure out some rates real fast. No. Don't you do that. Because you want to hear Miss Betty and Mr. Billy sell themselves. So you sent this in because you want to add a little bit more insurance. Why is it so important to you, Miss Betty? I love it because nobody asked that question. It's called peeling the onion. Get to the core. Give me the real reason why I'm here. Sell yourself on it and hear yourself tell the reason why you sent the card in and what you're trying to accomplish versus me selling you. I think was it Andrea put down, I'm chasing now, right? That's what happens a lot of times. You start chasing them. You want them to chase you by asking. So why is that so important to you? Socratic method of selling. You'll learn more by asking than you do by telling. I promise you, even with your own children, raised 8 of them. I mean, I know a little bit about it. I'm maybe not the best, but I know a pretty good bit about teenagers. Boys, girls, hormones flying all over the place. Everybody's different in the family, right? I mean, it's nuts. And if dad, mom doesn't spend time asking questions, gently, softly, detective-like, not interrogated-like, you're gonna get the old slam the door, build the wall, and cut you out. Head stuck in social media. I made a promise to myself, I'm not gonna let that happen, but not by force, but by drawing them to me. And my kids are grown now. They'll come to me and say, Dad, man, you took the time to listen and you were patient and you didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I didn't say that, that's my terminology. But you listened. I did. No matter what the situation was, no matter how bad it was. I try not to judge too soon, get temperamental with the whole situation, throw a bunch of anger out there, which is going to solve nothing. Ask questions. So if you don't mind me asking, sweetheart, what was it that made you feel like you wanted to do that? It takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to go through this. When we as the parents have been down this road, got the experience, know what the answer is, but to ask the question so they can tell you and sell themselves. That's hard. I want to tell you, I'm not a pro at it. I'm still working on it. but I know it works. I know how to get teenagers to open up. So the same goes with Miss Betty and Mr. Billy. You've got to take the time to keep them from you chasing them. They're going to chase you. So why is it so important to you, Miss Betty? This is where the sales are made. You're selling themselves. Well, listen, here's why this is important to me, is because I've got 5,000 now, 10,000 now, whatever it is. And I'm realizing the cost of funerals and burials are going up. I buried my brother last year. The rascal had no life insurance. It took us $14,000 to bury him, and I want to be buried too at our old family cemetery. I got 10,000 now. I realize that's not enough. I tried to tell my brother to get life insurance and he didn't. I don't leave that burden upon my kids. That's so much better than I've got 5 now and I need to add a little bit more. Go straight to the health and to the rates. What? Don't miss that. Miss Betty being devil's advocate. What happens if your kids come by and say, Mom, don't worry about that. We're going to make up for the difference, so we'll take care of you. But what happens if that happens? I love this part. This is where they really sell themselves. Are you kidding me? My kids can barely take care of their own family. I don't want them having that burden upon them. They are asking me for money half the time, or whatever the reason may be. I love that part of it, because then they get adamant about why they really need it. They're telling me why they need it, and they're telling me to shut up and sell me some insurance, versus me poking that button you're talking about, Andrea, and going, you got to get this now. This is very important for you to have this now. You're not getting any younger now. Your health is getting worse, and you better do this quickly, because if you don't do this, you don't know what tomorrow brings, and you better get it now. Okay. Well, thank you for telling me that. I'll take that in consideration. I'll get back with you. I mean, that's what people do when you start forcing stuff and pushing stuff on them. They go back and back and back and back, and they clam up and they shut down. But you can do it different by thinking about a doctor. Some good doctors. There's some that are bad, not good. That's why personally I like a female doctor for getting physicals and checkups. They got better bedside manners in my personal opinion, than guys do sometimes. Not all, but and I know there's great male doctors as well. But it's that softer touch that they have, the bedside manners touch, that's really critical in sales and in that business. So why is that so important to you, Miss Betty, if you don't mind me asking? You lower your voice, you come down to the level like a doctor would. So when you see it hurts here, what type of pain are we talking about? Oh my gosh, so you feel like you need this. So why is that so important to you to get that right now? Get that done right now. Good bedside manner doctor, they ask questions. They do. It's your health, it's your body. You got to tell them. Same with this. Same with this. All right, so get used to that in your needs section. Peel the outer layers, get down in there. Wallow around, and then when Miss Betty gets done, oh, so I see why you sent this card in. It's not just about adding some extra insurance on, Miss Betty. It's because you went through this experience last year with your brother, who you told to get insurance and he didn't, and left you holding the bag, and you're going asking people for money. That was very embarrassing for you. You don't want to do that to your children. Is that what you're saying? That's taking the story and taking it and putting it all together, and then saying, that's what's so important to you? Yes. Is there anything else that I'm missing? Oh yeah, one more thing. Or they may say, no, that's it. There you go. There's your needs section. That's where you are. And next we go into the health stuff. Well, with that in mind, Miss Betty, let me go to work for you. And let me see if I can find you a good company with affordable rates. Go grab your medication for me, or your list, whatever's best for you. And I'm going to put a little form here. I'm going to see if I can help you get something, okay? Sounds great. That's when you go into your health stuff, all the medicine. You can find a form back on Google Docs that you can list places of all the health history, surgeries, medications, height and weight, tobacco, non-tobacco. It's all in there that you can actually write the stuff down, okay? So there's your health section of the presentation. That's where you go into that. Spend time in there. You want to get this right. What medications you have. Make sure they're spelled correctly and just write the stuff down. If you don't know what they are, you can Google them and they'll tell you what any medication is and what it's used for, right? If you don't know, call your upline, tell them what you got, set them up as the expert and bounce things off of each other. You can do that with the health side. Then when I get through with the health side, what I do now, I use a lot of impact words and buzz phrases. Let me see if I can get you some discounts too, Miss Betty. How do you feel when you're dealing with someone in a retail situation, in a sales situation, or whatever it may be, and they go, let me see if I can get you some extra discounts for what we're doing here today? Well, you know what goes off in your head? This person, I wasn't even thinking about that. I did this the other day when I was at Jiffy Lube, and the guy goes, let me see if we're running any discounts for seniors right now. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, got a $25 off coupon. I said, that's fantastic. Man, I thought that he's on top of it. He's out to make his customers feel good and come back again. But that word discount is a buzzword for seniors and for everybody. So I use it all the time. After do the health, get all the medications out. Well, Miss Betty, let me see if I can get you some discounts as well. How would you feel? All right, let me see. First of all, Miss Betty, do you use any tobacco? Oh, that's a huge discount, Miss Betty. Congratulations. You quit 10 years ago. Well, keep up the good work. Don't you ever start again. No. I'm not planning on starting again. You probably like me, you tried the stuff when you were on the farm, tobacco. Yeah. I'm sorry I ever tried it. Relate, connectivity. Miss Betty, do you use much alcohol? Oh, no. I don't use that stuff. Only the rubbing kind, right? Yeah. And she'll laugh. The green stuff, right? Oh, yeah, the mint. They relate. You're connecting again. That's what you're doing with that. I've gone over 2 discounts. Now you say, Gary, where's the discount for alcohol use? Trust me, there's a big discount for alcohol use, because if you got problems with alcohol, you're not going to get any product and you have to go to a guaranteed issue. That's a big discount. Number 3, Miss Betty, do you get any exercise? You do. You walk down to the mailbox and back every day. Miss Betty, you keep that up. No, she may say, no. I've got neighbors and we walk around the block several times every day. Miss Betty, that's a huge discount. What is that discount? Because that means she's probably on less medications. She's active. Her mind is stronger. She's probably not on depression pills. She's probably not on all those heart pills. Huge discount. And last but not least, Miss Betty, a lot of the banks and credit unions give us discounts on our programs, like State Employees Credit Union, Wells Fargo, BB&T, Bank of America, places like. Who do you use for your stuff typically? I use State Employees Credit Union. Why do we ask that? Or why do I ask it? Well, if you're dealing with a younger market, maybe they're 55 years of age and they're not on Social Security yet. They may or may not have income, and they may or may not even have a bank account. I ran into that. Or Miss Betty may be getting her Social Security on a Direct Express card, but you didn't ask in the beginning who they're banking with. You didn't. And you got down all the way to the presentation. You presented Mutual of Omaha, and they don't take the Direct Express card. And you're sitting there going like, oh, what do I do now? I feel like an idiot. So you need to know who takes Direct Express cards. That is a debit card that the government provides for some seniors who want it to have their Social Security put on this debit card instead of through a bank account. You didn't know that in the beginning, though. And you presented it with American Amicable, Baltimore Life, Mutual of Omaha. None of them take it. And now you're sitting here showing the numbers for those companies. Not Gary. Because I asked Miss Betty, a lot of the banks and credit unions give us discount on our programs, to help out our customers, like State Employees Credit Union, BB&T, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, SunTrust. Who do you use for your stuff? Oh, I don't use any of those. You don't. So I take it you probably get your Social Security, Miss Betty, on one of those green Direct Express. Oh, I do. Okay, great. Well, that's great, Miss Betty. That's a huge discount as well. What I did, I snuffed out a potential landmine, an objection to using discounts right here. Now I know I got to go with Prosperity Life, or I got to go with Family Benefit Life for some company who takes Direct Express. That's how you increase your chances of closing every sale, because you know things up front. If they go, I have no bank account, you also need to know that as well. because some don't, and some are on Social Security, and they don't even have a direct express card. You're wasting time. I'm going to leave right now. There's no bank account, no way to pay for it. I'm out of here. Okay. So those are things we want to learn through our health and discount stage. All right. I've been going 100 miles a minute. I got to slow this thing down. Okay. Let's address the Brave family's question tonight. I have a question about age leads. Is it better to call and make an appointment or just do a show up? And any age lead, personally, I don't call them. They have no clue what you're talking about, especially if it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year old. They're going to be like, huh? What? When? Where? Who are you? So if I'm within an hour radius of those age leads, up to an hour and a half radius, I map it out. I go to the home. And I've gotten in many doors on age leads because they can see their handwriting. They can see it. So that's me. Now, if you are doing telesales, you just got to go through a ton of them. And that's fine. And that's what you have to do in telesales. So you're just going to sit there and just plan on doing $100 a day or whatever it's going to be until you knock them out. But age leads for me, since I still go see people in person, I map it out an hour and a half around, and I go straight to their home.
I'm sorry, I'm driving, so that's why I don't have my camera on. But the reason why I had asked you that was because the leads that I purchased, some of them are like 7 years back.
Mhm.
And so I did make 2 phone calls, and you were right about that with them not knowing that they had even filled out the information. But the leads that I got are within 30 minutes of my house. And so I just plan to get up in the morning and just try to knock them out and see if I can reach them tomorrow.
Correct.
But I just didn't know if it was best practice to call them to see about setting up an appointment versus just showing up. But if
No.
this is, if you're saying that age leads are better to do it that way, then that's what I'll do tomorrow.
Absolutely. You'll have much better success. Not only that, while you're in the neighborhood, you run the T, you hit the neighbors while you're there. Have you heard of that concept?
No, I have not.
Called running the T, the house on each side and the house across the street. And you say, hey, sorry to catch you off guard. I'm Gary, Senior Benefits. I was by seeing Miss Betty next door. She wasn't home, but hey, you're entitled to the same benefits as well. It's from the state approved final expense program for seniors. There's some benefits you're qualified for as well. Do you have just a few minutes? So once you learn to do that, you maximize your time in an area instead of burning gas, running across town. You'll start learning that you can actually help people next door who didn't even send a card in, because they'll go things like, I'm so glad you stopped by, or gosh, I was just thinking about this last week and you're here, or no thanks and you're on your way. So that's called running the T. The one's on each side and the one across the street. It'll produce great success for you. All right, so yeah, I'll go to all those doors. You can also belong to something or join something called whitepages.com. Whitepages.com. Have you heard of this before?
No, I have not.
Okay, so whitepages.com, you can get a premium account. It's about $5 extra, but it's worth its weight in gold. And so when you go to that house, it's a 5 to 7 year old age leads, and Mr. John Brown doesn't live there anymore. You can plug his name in on this whitepages.com. It'll show that previous address where you're sitting at right now, where John Brown used to live, but it'll also show currently where John Brown lives, which is a beautiful thing. You make a note of that. You mark out the old address. You put the new one in. Hey, Mr. John Brown, gosh, when you set this card in, you used to live over there on North Main. Now you live over here on Johnson Street. Sorry to catch you off guard. My name is Gary, Senior Benefits. You mailed this in a little while back. I'm sorry it took so long to get back with you on this year. There's certain benefits you're entitled to and qualify for. Either he's going to tell you to take a hike, or you know what? Glad you stopped by. I had something at one time and I moved and it lapsed, and so I need to get something again. That's whitepages.com on the premium account, which is about $5 a month, which is worth its weight in gold. Trust me. Not only that, White Pages will tell you who the neighbors' names are. They will. So when you plug in John Brown's name, you can pull up a list of who the neighbors are on both sides, and you got their names.
Okay. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So welcome. All righty. Let's see. How do you combat the fact that it is an age lead? For example, the potential client says, I filled out a long time ago and it looks like you, and it looks at you like, why do you take so long to show up? Because you're going to tell them that during your initial spiel. Hey, Miss Betty, Gary Keith, Senior Benefit Services. I'm so sorry it's taking us a little while to get back with you. You'd mailed this card in a little while ago. I'm the one that's been assigned to your case to follow up with you about this to make sure that you got all the benefits that you're entitled to and qualify for. You have just a few minutes. So you put the potential objection in with your script and you knock it out, you address it. You take the elephant in the room and bring it forward and just go ahead and address it head on. Ms. Pate, I'm so sorry to catch you off guard. You'd mailed this in a while back. I do apologize for taking so long to get to you. I'm the one been assigned to your case. A certain benefits you're entitled to and qualify for in these programs. I've been assigned to follow up with you. Do you have just a few minutes? Great. And you're gonna say one or two things. You're so stinking late. I've had this stuff now for 5 years. I will give you the count of 3 to get off my doorstep. They're not gonna say that. But if they did, you just leave. Or they're gonna say, you know what? No, but my daughter just had her second child, and I need to get a little policy on her. All it is getting out there and talking to people. You're going to run into business and the final expense. You just are, because these people have it on their brain at all times. Unlike the market I used to use in long-term care, those people were for jack, nothing. They're all tight-lipped and just, too straightforward. The final expense market, they were for everybody. They're always thinking about life insurance. So just go out there and put it in your script, Joe. Address the elephant in the room up front, and then just go for it. Go for it. There's certain benefits you're entitled to qualify for. I'm not assigned to your case. Do you have just a few minutes? So then let the chips fall where they may. Okay, good question. Good question. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have run over a little bit. If there's some other questions, please post those now or forever hold your peace. Hope you've taken a little bit of information out tonight. One tidbit, one nugget, one little powerhouse impact statement or word that you can apply in your life right now as you put in your presentation that's going to make a difference. Take one, maybe two, if you want to, whether it's from the market, whether it's from the connectivity, whether it's from the credibility, whether it's from the need, or whether it's from the health information and discounts. Apply it, put it in use, practice it each and every day. You're going to get better. You are. You're going to improve. You really are. You're going to start closing at a higher level. I can promise you. Takes a little time. We're going to make it happen. All righty. I see no other questions. Well, until we meet again, same bat time, same bat station, and same bat place next week. Until we meet again, good luck and good selling. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Same
Thank
to you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.